Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're objectively unpacking the classical exegesis of Surah Al-Fatihah. We are taking a really fascinating macro to micro journey through its history, theology, and linguistics. Whether you've known this text your whole life or you're totally new to its structure, we're going to explore how classical scholars literally analyzed every single layer of these opening verses.
All right, here's our syllabus for today. First, the mother of the book. Second, a two-way divine conversation. Third, the act of seeking refuge. Fourth, the power of Bismillah. And fifth, decoding the divine names.
Starting off with Section 1, the mother of the book, looking at the scale of Al-Fatihah.
So according to classical scholars like Ibn Kathir, this monumental surah is remarkably concise. We are talking exactly 7 verses, 25 words, and 113 letters. Just think about that for a second. Despite being that incredibly brief, this exact sequence of letters and words forms the absolute bedrock of daily Islamic practice. It carries a weight that way exceeds its physical length on the page.
And you can really see that weight in its alternative titles. Islamic tradition doesn't just view it as a simple book opener. They call it al-Kitab, the mother of the book, because it essentially contains the core DNA of the entire Quran. But it's also called as-Salah, representing the prayer itself. And historically, it's even been used as ash-Shifa and ar-Ruqya, meaning a physical cure and remedy. So it truly spans both the spiritual and physical realms.
Moving to Section 2, a two-way divine conversation, the dynamic prayer.
This multi-layered utility leads us right into a famous hadith that totally reframes how we look at the text. It's not a monologue. The divine is said to literally divide the recitation into a direct line-by-line exchange. The text explicitly says, "I have divided the prayer into 2 halves between myself and my servant shall have what he asks for."
And this is just a brilliant illustration of a static text becoming a living, breathing conversation. Every single verse you utter gets a direct divine response. You say, "All praise is due to Allah," and the divine actually replies, "My servant has praised me." You ask, "Guide us to the straight path," and the response is that the request is granted. Scholars emphasize this back-and-forth mechanism to show that you are never ever just speaking into a void.
Because this conversational structure is so deeply intimate, Islamic scholars maintain a strict consensus that reciting Al-Fatihah is an absolute, unavoidable condition for a valid prayer. The classical exegesis is super firm on this. If you skip this specific dialogue, the prayer is fundamentally incomplete. It's literally the indispensable engine of the ritual.
Which brings us to Section 3, the act of seeking refuge, the isti'ava.
But before you can even begin that divine conversation, the exegesis lays out a crucial prep step. And it draws this really fascinating contrast. It notes that human enemies can often be won over with kindness, leniency, maybe just good treatment. But the unseen inner enemy, Satan or Shaitan, is pure evil. Kindness doesn't soften him at all. So, because this enemy is unrelenting and completely invisible to us, the reciter absolutely must seek divine protection before engaging with the sacred text.
So, what's the linguistic reasoning here? Why is this specific entity referred to by the Arabic term shaitan?
Well, classical Arab linguists explain that the root of the word shaitana literally means the far thing. It implies a nature that is fundamentally entirely distant. By definition, this entity has a nature completely different from mankind, and his ways are far removed from any type of righteousness.
And then you couple that with ar-Rajim, meaning the outcast or the one completely expelled from all righteousness. By uttering this preparatory phrase, seeking refuge from Shaitan ar-Rajim, you're actively acknowledging human weakness against a distant, invisible, outcast enemy. You're setting up a solid protective boundary before the prayer even starts.
All right, Section 4, the power of Bismillah, the gateway.
With refuge sought, you finally arrive at the gateway of the prayer and the surah itself, the Basmala, or Bismillah. Now, classical scholars note that saying in the name of Allah isn't just restricted to this chapter. It's actually recommended to sanctify almost every single daily action. Whether it's beginning a prayer, giving a speech, eating food, or performing physical ablution, this phrase creates a constant physical and spiritual anchor, tethering your mundane, everyday actions to a much higher purpose. There is actually a really surprising and illustrative anecdote in the text about this. The Prophet advised that if you trip and say, "Cursed Shaitan," it literally inflates the devil's ego. It makes him feel as big as a house because he honestly thinks his own strength caused you to fall.
But if you simply say Bismillah instead, it physically shrinks him down to the size of a fly. It's such a striking visual metaphor used by scholars to show the immense grounding power of invoking the divine name rather than reacting to negativity.
And finally, Section 5, Decoding the Divine Names, the Micro-Linguistics.
For our last step, we are zooming all the way into the micro-linguistic level of the opening line to decode the exact divine attributes being used. The verse begins with the name Allah. Exegetes describe this as the greatest name, the ultimate exclusive title that all other 99 divine attributes refer back to. It acts as the ultimate umbrella term for the divine presence.
Right after that, the text uses two descriptive names coming from the exact same Arabic root for mercy, Rahmah. But look at the profound theological nuance here. Ar-Rahman represents a broad, universal grace that covers absolutely all of creation in both this life and the next. Ar-Rahim, on the other hand, is a highly specific, focused grace directed specifically toward the believers. Two words from one root painting this incredibly complete picture of general and specific mercy.
Furthermore, the exegesis highlights a very strict linguistic boundary regarding how these terms can be used. Because Ar-Rahman signifies an all-encompassing universal mercy, it is fiercely guarded as a strictly divine title. You literally cannot use it for a human. But Ar-Rahim, that actually can be and is used to describe humans who show deep, focused mercy to others.
So we've gone from the sheer mathematical scale of the surah, quantifying its letters and words, all the way down to the deep linguistic roots of its opening vocabulary. And it leaves us with a really profound question. How does understanding the microscopic roots of these words shift the way you view one of the most recited prayers in human history? When you unpack a text this intricately, a simple daily ritual totally transforms into a highly structured, historically rich conversation. I really hope this explainer gave you a clear, structured look into the classical analysis of Al-Fatihah. Until next time, keep seeking to understand the foundational texts that shape our world.